that's why I can't open doors anymore.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
just one morning woke up, forgot how they worked.
Oh my gosh,
It's like,
that's insane.
yeah, it's like, how they have some of the doors have the lights that open, like they'll censor you. And I stood in front of one for 4 hours. I thought I was a ghost.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but it was
I
just,
get that though. Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens.
yeah.
You know?
Anyway, how y'all doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Awesome. So your show is called
Chanzo.
Chanzo. Now,
Yeah.
was this written by y'all?
Yeah,
Is that true?
I'll let Konzi start with that because he is the writer.
Yeah. I am the playwright for Chanzo, and it's I'm borrowing something that the director said. It's kind of semi autobiographical, a bit of a stretch. So I don't know. I don't think it's so autobiographical to me directly, but more of a broader experience of going through grief from a distance and having to reconcile yourself with that idea of being away when the misfortune happens.
Now, that's something that a lot of people can relate to. It's a very heavy subject. Did you find yourself at moments having to step back from it and like, oh, like I'm in this deep? Like, did you find yourself having to pull back a little bit?
Yeah, I have a very excellent team, so I felt like I was very well taken care of whenever it got so close to me, and they were able to, explore the project artistically, but also be able to, each of us found our own way to position ourselves in terms of, it's a Kenyan Canadian story, but also most of the members of the team, they understand they do understand the immigrant story within it and how the distance kind of intersect in a way. So in our telling and in our exploration, we all found a way to fit in because there's so much commonalities that arise from that experience.
Gotcha. And Jean, did you want to add to that too as well? Is there something that maybe you found in it that was really hit home with you, really? Because I find myself when I'm watching something that is extremely emotional, but I can relate to, I have to stop it. Like I have to stop it for a sec and walk away from it. Was there a moment like that for you as well, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody in the team had that moment a little bit, right? Because the show can be very like funny and like enriching at times, but like there are like because we're discussing grief, there has to be topic and talking about death, and unfortunately, when we do that, there are a lot of pains associated with that. So we even so in rehearsals, there have been times where some people would talk about their own experience and they would tear up and they would, and I would have to just say, okay, we have to like just step away from this. Let's just like, do something else, 5-10 minutes. And it's especially like interesting because we've been working on this show since January.
I know.
Or we weren't going to put it up in Fringe.
Yeah.
And then something happened and then we're like, okay, let's just put it up in Fringe. So we just had like a really long discussion process about what does grief mean, what does it mean to think about death, and we talk a lot about it in immigrant perspective because a lot of our team, I think all of our team members are immigrants other than two designers. Our assistant director is from Venezuela. We have a person from Caribbean, actors from Caribbean, East Africa, and also Egypt.
Oh, wow.
Right, yeah.
So you have a diverse perspective of death from almost, it sounds like all over the world.
Yeah.
How do you tackle that? Because I can barely wrap. I have 2 children. When I think about grief, I try not to. How do you tackle such a heady and gripping subject? Yet, like you said there's humor in it, and sometimes you do need humor as a release to to stop from crying, as the saying goes. How do you tackle that? Like, are there moments where you have to say like this? Okay, we got to make one fart joke. We gotta put a fart joke there, or people are gonna just cry through the whole thing.
No. Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, the humor here is like very real.
Yeah.
Like,
it's organic. It grows from the story.
Yeah, it organic grows from the story. It's like there are so many lines that I just laugh at because I'm like, oh man, that's so stupid. That's so true. Right?
So true,
Yeah, and the team, like, we like have fun like outside of the stage. Everybody's like buddies with each other.
Good.
Right. A lot of the team actually is from another project, so they've known each other for like a year or two or longer than that actually. So they're all like really good friends with each other. Yeah, and it's just been interesting to develop, like, because with each different culture that we're all bringing, there's a lot of specificity. Like, for example, I'm from Korea. My background is from Korea, so like I have my own Korean specificity that's like, you know, different from Kenya or Venezuela. But there's also the shared commonality between immigrants that, like, I can't quite explain into words, but everybody just kind of gets
That's true, because everybody experiences it. It's like a commonality, but it's an abstract commonality.
Yeah.
That's
And
heavy.
I remember something that happened when John first came across the script. One of the things that he asked me in that, you know, preliminary conversation was, do you think I'm the right person to tell this story? And the thing that was enriching, because, you know, in as much as it has that immigrant insidership, it also is a Black story, you know. Blackness in it is a very significant thing. But I remember responding and telling, we had quite a chat and we got to know each other as friends, as artists on different levels. And I saw the potential for all these different facets of diversity. They are a mode of enrichment, and they are all different entry points into what it can become. I think one of the things I imagined, I wasn't writing it particularly first for Kenyans to see. I was writing it for a Northern American audience to be able to see it. But from the Kenyan ground, it's located in Kenya. It takes place in Kenya, but it speaks to a Northern American audience. I know that sounds messed up, but it's intentional. And John and the rest of the team were able to negotiate how does it transfer, and how do the politics involved in, you know, the representation, but also, you know, I think of everything that has happened recently, we've also been talking about getting things right, but I think this particular project, it has that element of getting it right, but also the element of expanding and being able to not only focus on what we need to get right, but what can we imagine, you know, beyond the purviews that this project kind of conjures for all of us to fit into the story collectively. Yeah.
Did you find, with the diverse backgrounds and the abstraction of the concept, did you still find yourself having to educate people a little bit about what it's like to be Kenyan and what it's like to be, you know, to have a Korean background? Did you find yourself having to, maybe educate is the wrong word, but and I don't want to say explain certain things, but because some people might not be able to put themselves in the situation. Did you find that the idea of grief and the abstraction of death, do you find that sort of tied it all together? Like, did you have to not have to explain it because everybody, no matter where you're from, has been touched by it?
That's a really great question.
You are right. See, but so here's a good point. This is a coping mechanism for me, right? So my coping mechanism is humor, and everybody else's coping mechanisms are different. But sorry, to go on with that question, it affects everybody in such a different way. Did you have to educate people as like, it's okay to cry, it's okay to throw up, it's okay to leave, it's okay to shut down? Or did you just go with what you wanted to say and tell your story?
Yeah, I mean, everybody do have different coping mechanism. I don't my personal thing is I don't cry that often. But if people do cry, that is their own coping mechanism. And I'm not going to say you can't cry here, all right? So
stop the play. You
yeah,
get out. Get out.
What are you doing in my theater?
You're fake crying too.
Yeah, right. What are you doing? Right? No. So everybody, and like what's interesting about this show is that yes, there's a lot of rituals that we have to explain from Kenyan perspective because you put a lot of rituals, and he can like explain that later. That like really resonate with his own culture. For example, there's a scene where people throw dirt at a grave. That's not really, that's not really Canadian or even Korean. They're specifically Kenyan. So like there's a lot of the like metaphors and things like that that's very Kenyan that Mcconaughey like really explains to us. And he would just come in and say, this is what this means, and this is what this means, which is excellent. But there were some things that we didn't have to necessarily explain. For example, my favorite moment was when I was talking about, like it's really weird when your parents are of different culture than you, and sometimes like there's a lot of cultural clashes. And for me, I was getting myself to fully explain what that meant, and then I realized, oh no, literally all of you have experienced this. So what, like, and there were so many things where I'm like, oh, no, wait, I don't need to explain because all of you have done this before, and all of you know to some extent what I'm talking about. Now, it might not be the exact experience, but it's like very similar that like they all understand it to some extent. And it's like very enriching in that way. It's like, I've never worked with a team of immigrants before. Usually I'm the only one in the room that, is like traditionally non-white. But here, we can share those experiences, and there is a little bit of like intuitive understanding of what we all mean.
That's a beautiful way to put it, because everybody eats, so you don't have to describe what eating is like. But eating from different cultures is a very different ritual experience. The sustenance itself is different, right? So the commonality of grief. And is this is from a Kenyan perspective, or is the character Kenyan? Do you know what I mean by asking that? Like, is this a specific Kenyan perspective?
Yeah, but it's all hidden there. So it's
cool.
The in the playwrights, and I don't know if I'm getting the playwright's intention correctly. That's a joke. Anyway, in the playwright's mind, it was meant
interview's
to be
over.
It was meant to be a very particular Kenyan community, ethnic community that I come from, which is called Kamba. But there was all those layers that had to be negotiated on what makes it Kenyan, but also what makes it accessible to other, socio-cultural experiences. So the cultural specificity, like Jong was saying, it was one of the facets. It wasn't the main facet. So it was one of the things. And we had a lot of aha moments in terms of, sibling relationships, what it means to leave your family and come back and kind of, not be in line with everything that is happening. So the commonalities and the cultural specificity and the curiosity that we had were all summed up into what we are going to present, right? I don't mean to speak as a director, but yeah, there was something you said about, and I'm glad you did not finish that sentence. Everyone eats, right? So that sentence, thank you for not finishing it. But it's always.
I didn't mean that, but you made that statement way more interesting. I just read everybody poops to my daughter, so I get it.
But it's all this. There's the human moments, but also the moments that color it with a particular Kenyan and Canadian, because it's also Kenyan in conversation with Canadian. So it's that Jong talks a lot about that in between space of non-belonging and negotiating what that means. And it was very interesting to explore all those lines. So there were all these strands that made it what it is, or even what we envision another future rendition of it being.
Gotcha. So it sounds accessible, like for the average theater goer. Maybe somebody isn't. The nice thing about this Fringe is that the people that you have in your audience are like they want to be there. It's not just like, let's go see a Fringe play. It's like, no, they want to be there. Where is your venue again?
It's at the Backstage Theater.
Oh, that place is awesome. It's
That's
so
my
good.
favorite stage.
Yeah.
I was so happy to get it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I've performed there a few times, and it's just, it's great. And I like the way they do. I like the way they work it there too. Like I just like the way the whole setup, and I like everything about it, especially during the pandemic. The way they handled that, I thought that was very cool. So if this was, let's say you and I walked into an elevator, and I said, "Oh, I heard you're doing a Fringe show. What would be your elevator pitch to me about your show?" You can go first, Jong, and then Mukanzi, you can go second.
Okay. Chanzo is about the shared sense of grief that we all have, told from perspective of immigrants, but not just for immigrants.
I'm in. I want to see it.
Great.
I'm there. It's Backstage Theater, I heard.
Backstage Theater.
Don't like the place, but I'll be there.
Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you. And
yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, but I think to add on to that is what it means to be left behind, but also, it's never about when you leave, you're not left behind. It's just a different kind of stagnation and movement. So it's things that cannot be aligned and things that will always be aligned. Mine is the worst pitch, but it's
I'm not going anymore. I take it back. Also, this is my floor, and I don't even live in this building. So, well, I gotta get going. Just kidding. It sounds beautiful, and it sounds like you care about it, which I think will translate onto the stage. When people don't really care about stuff, the audience can sense that. They can have that stink of contempt. And I don't get that at all from the way y'all are describing it. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you would like to add, or anything that you thought I'd ask that I should have asked?
Just curiosity. There is some Kiswahili in the show, and I'm just so excited to share that with an Edmonton audience.
Awesome. And
I hope it's accessible. The director can speak to the accessibility of the chord switching and chord mixing, but I'm really that's one among the many things I'm proud of in writing the script.
Swahili is one of those lyrical languages that I find that if you don't even know what the person is saying, you can still pick up on the affectation of of how they're saying it. So I think that people will enjoy it. I know I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy the crap out of it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And that go ahead.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the actor who's speaking on the majority of Kiswahili isn't Kenyan. She's from Caribbean, so she has to learn a lot of Kiswahili.
Oh, cool.
She's doing a great job.
That's awesome.
Right? And like you'd believe that she's like Kenyan. So like, yeah, she's doing great.
That's great. That's awesome. Gentlemen, thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, if there's anything you want to send me that we might have gleaned over, I will add it into what we got here. But again, thank you so much. All the information for the show will be in the body of the video. Just below it, links to everything, links to tickets and all that stuff. So yeah, thank you very much again. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for this interview.